back, everyone. Top officials of the federal government continue to express concern over the growing wave of hate speeches in the country. So, will considering hate speech as terrorism solve the problem? I still have my guests here tonight on the program, Mr. Garba Shehu, spokesperson to President Muhammadu Buhari, Mr. Clement Nwanko, a lawyer and a civil rights activist. Let me come to you quickly, Mr. Garba Shehu. The president, in the first paragraph, the second paragraph of his speech to the nation when he returned to the country, did express worries about social media. Is the president concerned so much about this, and how is he going about monitoring, or how is he going about controlling what goes out there? As the vice president has said, look, hate speeches around the country might be taken as terrorism.
Well, let me say to you again that this is a global problem, and that for this specific case of this country we had thought in the 60s and into the 70s, this country had resolved tribalism. It was no longer an issue. Tribalism is back all over again. Look at what is happening with terrorism globally. In the past, people needed to go to Iraq, Syria, or Libya to learn and become suicide bombers and Islamic terrorists and all of that the world is talking about. You don't have to go there. You sit on the internet and you get radicalized and you get bombed and you go and explode it in the marketplaces. So the president is right to be justified. How is the government going to deal with this? Government is concerned, is considering options on how to deal with this matter.
And what are the options?
Well, they must be in line with the Constitution. The law of the country must be, it must be in line with the laws of the country. And my sense is that there possibly could be legislation that would go to the National Assembly. Our hope is possibly that government will not be in the forefront. Stakeholders, all of you who are involved in the field, come together and formulate what you think needs to be done so that the red lines won't be crossed.
As a former president of the Nigerian Guild of Editors, you know what exactly freedom of speech is all about. And the concern in some part of the traditional media is that this word out there about government concerns, about critical speeches of people may extend into what could be perceived as gagging. Could it get to that point?
Freedom of expression is a qualified freedom. Your freedom, you can run it as much as you can. It stops where the freedom, the rights of others begin. So therefore, it's not an unqualified freedom that you continue to just say anything. Let me tell you, everywhere, the whole world, nations across the globe, they're watching and taking actions. WhatsApp administrators, they're under scrutiny in India, in the UK, you just mentioned a short while ago. Theresa May, the Prime Minister, was saying, look, if Facebook had given the profile of this suspect, he would have apprehended him and he would not have had the chance to have attacked our parliament. So everyone is doing something to protect their countries, to protect their citizens. And I think that Nigerians should give the chance and believe in the fact that this government is a Nigerian government, it's not an alien government.
You're asking Nigerians to trust the government that when it's monitoring, it will not be a form of gagging. Is that what you're saying?
So far, this government has shown the best conduct in dealing with the Nigerian press. Do you have any journalists from your organization or anyone that you know that is locked up by secret service, the police or the courts on the instruction of this government? We have dealt most fairly with the mass media in this country.
You are the usage of social media with you and your team is massive. You know how just important that, and you know just how important that was when you came into power. The president is concerned. What is the government doing on the social media part too?
Well, I just told you that the government is concerned and is looking at options that are...
You've not told us the options yet.
And I said that the most likely one is that we'll follow the path of legislation. And even in that, we'd rather that stakeholders lead the way.
Mr. Nwanko.
I think legislation is important, but we need to look at existing legislation to see if indeed we do not have sufficient provisions in the Constitution. Nigeria is signatory to the International Criminal Court Treaty, which prohibits hate crime and similar such activities. The Criminal Code, in fact, provides for how to curb hate speeches. The Electoral Act even delves into the question. I think the key thing here is for government to be very even in the way it deals with people who preach hate crime. So if you have some elements called northern youths who threaten an entire ethnic group, governments should not be in a press conference with them lifting a ban or lifting a quit order. The same thing if you have groups in the southeast or in the southwest who are busy profiling and attacking other ethnic groups, as happens with groups attacking the Fulani at their houses, or vice versa. Government needs to be very firm. If you look at the social media, it's full of hate, not just by the Igbos against the Hausa Fulani.
So you agree with a clampdown, a possible clampdown?
I believe that if any person, because ethnicity has become a major issue, if any person promotes hate through the social media, they should be brought to account within the existing law. The problem has been that government does not appear to be very even in the way it has handled this. When a group in Kaduna issued a threat against a certain ethnic group, the governor promised that that group was going to be apprehended and prosecuted. What we saw was that this group was hobnobbing with government and even sitting in government to address press conferences. So unless the government is even, beyond that as well, government must in its own actions show that it is prepared to govern in a very even way, with equality at the back of its mind. So in terms of it providing development, in terms of providing infrastructure, you must spread this across the country in order to reduce the resentment and anger that is pervading the country today.
Just like we close the conversation right now. So, Mr. Garba Shehu, another concern is that it could be used as control, because in other crimes, you see that the control over the media, whether social media or traditional media, are used for political reasons. And these are some of the fears.
Well, people can be justified in having those fears. But the thing is that judge us by what we do. Look at the antecedents of this administration, how we came in. 2 years into the administration, as I said, this is the most media-friendly administration this country has ever seen under this constitution. Please, people should not excite unnecessary fears. We will deal fairly and justly, but as Clement said, something has got to be done. And this country will not fold our arms and to see bigots and ethnicists, set this country on fire.
Could it get to the point that government might shut down some social media platforms?
Let me tell you.
Could it get to that point?
If it could, I am not in a position to say yes or no, but what I will tell you that it's already happening in other countries.
Those cannot be examples for Nigeria. If the government gets to the point of shutting down any social media platform, then it really, really gets a very bad badge for itself. What it must do is provide even development, ensure that people who preach hate are evenly treated across the country. So if people are preaching hate from the southeast or the southwest or the northeast or the northwest, they must equally be brought to account, and government must be seen to do so. It is the fact that people perceive that government is not even in doing so that is even exacerbating the existing hate that we see in the country today. And government must take action to ensure that tribalism, ethnicity, and all of these hate language that is pervading this space is brought to some control.
All right, you were going to say, Mr. Garba Shehu,
on this issue that
perhaps.
I'm not here to defend what northern whatever people have done. I think that the accusation against government is not fair, because what is the objective that we want to achieve? If the idea is there's a threat, an unwanted threat, and you want to vanquish, you want to end it, I think that the processes the northern governors and the politicians have taken have resolved that issue. It's been called off.
Right.
I think the problem on the other side, with Kanu and so on, is that they appeared for a long time, nobody seemed to be in a position to call him to order. Even the courts of the land have failed. That's the trouble.
Okay. Mr. Garba Shehu, spokesperson of the president, and Mr. Clement Nwanko, rights activist and a lawyer. Many thanks, gentlemen, for coming on the program. Always a pleasure talking to you.
Thank you.
And that's our show for tonight. Whether it's for selfish interest or for the common good, let there be fair play and compassion. That's our show for tonight. Many thanks for being part of it. I'm Sean Okimale. Bye for now.